Fanatics, welcome to Diamond Painting Fanatics. I am Cindy and welcome to Thriller Thursday. We're going to discuss another crime episode. I don't like saying story, I need another word. Okay, we're going to discuss another crime case, and this is the very tragic story of Joanna Yates. Have you heard of this case? Very, very tragic. So I'm going to begin with a bit about her, and then we will talk about her disappearance. Joanna Yates was born on the 19th of April 1985 to David and Teresa in Hampshire. She studied for her A-levels and graduated with a degree in landscape architecture. She received her postgraduate diploma in landscape architecture from the University of Gloucestershire. In December 2008, Joanna met a 25-year-old architect called Greg at the firm Highland Edgar Driver in Winchester. The couple moved in together in 2009 and settled in Bristol when the company moved there. Joanna then she changed jobs and began working at the Building Design Partnership in Bristol. Joanna and Greg moved into a flat. It was a large house that had been subdivided into several flats in October 2010. At approximately 8 p.m. on the 19th of December 2010, Greg returned home from a weekend visit to Sheffield to find Joanna wasn't there. Greg had been trying to contact her by phone and text, but couldn't get an answer. While waiting for Joanna's return, Greg called again, but her mobile phone rang from a pocket in her coat, which was still in the flat. He found that her purse and keys were still also at the flat, and that their cat appeared to have been neglected. Shortly after midnight, Greg contacted the police and Joanna's parents to report her missing. Investigators determined that Joanna had spent the evening of the 17th of December with colleagues at the Bristol Ram pub, and she left around 8 p.m. to begin a 30-minute walk home. She told friends and colleagues that she was not looking forward to spending the weekend alone, as it would be her first in the flat without Greg. She planned to spend her time baking in preparation for a party that the couple would be throwing the following week, and getting her Christmas shopping done. Joanna was seen on CCTV at around 8:10 leaving a Waitrose supermarket without purchasing anything. She phoned her friend Rebecca at 8:30 to arrange a meeting on Christmas Eve, and the last known footage of Joanna was recorded. She was buying pizza from a branch of Tesco Express at around 8:40 p.m. She also bought 2 bottles of cider at a nearby off-licence. Greg and Joanna's friends set up a website and used social networking services to help look for her. On the 21st of December 2010, Joanna's parents and Greg made a public appeal for her safe return at a police press conference. In another press conference, that was broadcast live on the 23rd of December by Sky News and BBC News, Joanna's father, David, commented on her disappearance. He said, and I quote, "I think she was abducted after getting home to her flat. I have no idea of the circumstances of the abduction because of what was left behind. I feel sure she would not have gone out by herself, leaving all these things behind, and she was taken away somewhere." Detectives found no sign of the pizza she bought or of its packaging. Both bottles of cider were found in the flat, one of them partially consumed. As there was no evidence of forced entry or a struggle, investigators began to examine the possibility that Joanna may have known her abductor. On Christmas Day, a fully clothed body was found in the snow by a couple walking their dogs along Longwood Lane near a golf course and next to the entrance of a quarry in Fayland, approximately 3 miles from her home. The body was declared by police as that of Joanna. Greg and Joanna's parents visited the site of the discovery on the 27th of December. David said that the family, quote, had been told to prepare for the worst, and expressed relief that his daughter's body had been recovered. Funeral arrangements were delayed as investigators retained the body. The pathologist, Nat Carey, consented to the release of the body on the 31st of January 2011. The investigation comprised of 80 detectives and civilian staff under the direction of Detective Chief Inspector Phil Jones, a senior officer with Avon and Somerset Constabulary's Major Crime Investigation Unit. It became one of the largest police operations in the constabulary's history. Jones urged the public to come forward with any information to help catch the killer, especially potential witnesses who were in the vicinity of Longwood Lane in the period before Joanna's body was discovered. He stated that the investigation was seeking the driver of a light-coloured 4x4 vehicle for questioning. Jones said that the officers had been, quote, inundated with thousands of calls, exhausting every lead and avenue that they were provided with. Police examined over 100 hours of surveillance footage along with 293 tons of rubbish seized from the area around Joanna's flat. Crime Stoppers offered a £10,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of her murderer, while the Sun newspaper offered £50,000. Authorities advised people living in the area to secure their homes and warned women not to walk home alone after dark. Speaking on the 29th of December about the murder investigation, Joanna's father said, "I fear that whoever has done this will never hand themselves in, but we live in hope that the police will catch who is responsible." Following the discovery of Joanna's body, detectives from the Avon and Somerset Constabulary issued an appeal for anyone with information about the death to come forward, and investigated similarities with other unsolved cases. Of particular interest to them were those of 20-year-old Glenys Carruthers, who was strangled in 1974, Melanie Hall, aged 25, who disappeared in 1996 and whose body was discovered 13 years later, and 35-year-old Claudia Lawrence, who went missing in 2009. Investigators identified striking similarities between the Joanna and Hall cases, notably their age and appearance, and that they had disappeared after returning home from meeting friends, but the possibility of such connections was later downplayed by authorities. The police gathered surveillance video from the Clifton Suspension Bridge, which forms part of the most direct route from the crime scene to the Clifton suburb where Joanna was last seen. The footage was of poor quality, making it impossible to clearly distinguish individuals or car registration numbers. Investigators were aware that the perpetrator could have used an alternative bridge across the River Avon less than a mile to the south to avoid CCTV coverage. A post-mortem examination began on Boxing Day 2010. Though results were delayed due to the frozen condition of the body, police initially thought it was possible that Joanna froze to death because her body showed no visible signs of injury. Investigators announced on the 28th of December that the case had become a murder inquiry as the pathologist who performed her autopsy determined that Joanna had died as a result of strangulation. The post-mortem indicated that she had died, quote, several days before being discovered. The examination also confirmed that Joanna did not eat the pizza she had purchased. Detective Chief Inspector Jones stated that the investigation found no evidence to suggest that Joanna was sexually assaulted. The police searched Greg's laptop, computer and mobile phone as part of a standard procedure. Greg was ruled out as a suspect and treated as a witness. They will always look close to home first. A young woman attending a party at a neighbouring house on the night of Joanna's disappearance recalled hearing two loud screams shortly after 9 p.m. coming from the direction of Joanna's flat. Another neighbour who lived behind Joanna's home said that he heard a woman's voice scream, "Help me," although he could not recall exactly when the incident had occurred. Officers removed the front door to Joanna's flat to check for clothing fibres and DNA evidence, with investigators examining the possibility that the perpetrator had entered the flat before Joanna returned home. Senior officers from the investigation asked for assistance from the National Policing Improvement Agency, which provides expertise for difficult cases. On the 4th of January 2011, a clinical forensic psychologist who had previously been involved as a criminal profiler in other high-profile murder cases joined the investigation to help narrow down the number of potential suspects. Jones stated that his officers had established over 1,000 lines of inquiry. Jones said, "I can assure you we are determined to solve this crime and bring Joe's killer to justice." On the 5th of January, Detective Chief Inspector Jones announced that one of Joanna's socks was missing when she was found, and that it had not been found at the crime scene or in her home. Police launched a national advertising campaign to appeal for witnesses through Facebook. The page, established on the 4th of January, had been viewed nearly 250,000 times by the following day, while CCTV footage of Joanna had been viewed 120,000 times on YouTube by the 5th of January. On the 9th of January 2011, Bristol East MP Kerry McCarthy gave her support to the idea of a public DNA screening process if the police found it useful. The Avon and Somerset Constabulary had conducted mass DNA screening during the 1995 investigation into the disappearance of Louise Smith. McCarthy suggested that the screening process should be extended beyond Clifton to the wider Bristol area. DNA that had been found on Joanna's body was tested for a potential profile. Detectives also began tracking the movements of several hundred registered sex offenders living within their jurisdiction to determine the individual's whereabouts on the 17th of December. Shortly after 7 a.m. on the 30th December 2010, Christopher Jeffries, Joanna's landlord, who lived in another flat in the same building, was arrested on suspicion of her murder. He was taken to a local police station for questioning, while forensic investigators inspected his flat. On the 31st of December, a senior police officer granted investigators a 12-hour extension to the arrest, enabling them to hold him in custody for additional questioning. Police subsequently applied to the magistrates for further extensions, which were granted on the 31st of December and the 1st of January. Investigators were able to detain him as a suspect for up to 96 hours, but released Jeffries on bail 2 days later. After 2 days, he retained the legal services of the law firm to act on his behalf. On March the 4th, 2011, police released him from bail and stated he was no longer a suspect. I remember that. He was a weird, creepy dude, though. He subsequently won an undisclosed sum in libel damages for defamatory news articles published following his arrest, and received an apology from Avon and Somerset Police for any distress caused to him during the investigation. Yeah, I remember that. He was creepy, but he didn't do it, so he can carry on being a little bit creepy. In January 2011, a reconstruction of the case was filmed on location in Bristol for broadcast on the 26th of January for the BBC television programme Crime Watch. A specialised firm from the film industry was contacted to reproduce the snowy conditions at the time of Joanna's disappearance. The reconstruction of Joanna's last movements was filmed on the 18th of January, and within 24 hours of news coverage about the production, over 300 people contacted the police. A breakthrough led investigators to believe that Joanna's body might have been transported in a large holdall or suitcase. On the morning of the 20th of January, the Avon and Somerset Constabulary arrested 32-year-old engineer Vincent Tabak, who lived with his girlfriend in the flat next door to Joanna. However, authorities declined to reveal additional details while the suspect was being interrogated due to concerns over controversial media coverage of Jeffries' arrest, which had breached the rules governing what can be reported when an individual is arrested. The Vincent Tabak arrest followed an anonymous tip from a female caller shortly after a televised appeal by Joanna's parents on Crime Watch. Joanna's Road was closed by police while scaffolding was constructed around Joanna's home, and officers sealed off Vincent's adjacent flat. Investigators also searched the nearby townhouse of a friend, where Vincent was believed to have been staying about a mile away. Vincent had previously been ruled out as a suspect during an earlier stage of the investigation and had returned to Britain from a holiday to visit his family in the Netherlands. Following his arrest, the BBC cancelled its plans to air the Joanna reenactment on Crime Watch on the 31st of January. Previously unseen photos of Joanna were released through the programme's website. Naughty. DNA tests were carried out. Lindsay Lennon, a body fluids and DNA specialist member of the team that analysed DNA samples from Joanna's body, said although DNA swabs matched Vincent, they were not of sufficient quality to be evaluated. The team deployed a method known as DNA Sense, but it's a capital CE on the end, which enhances unusable DNA samples through purification and concentration. We couldn't say whether the DNA was from saliva or semen or even touch, but we could say that the probability of it not being a match with Vincent was less than 1 in a billion. Wow. After questioning during 96 hours of detention, Vincent was charged on the 22nd of January 2011 with the murder of Joanna Yates. He made a brief appearance at Bristol Magistrates Court on the 24th of January and was remanded in custody. Vincent, legally represented by Paul Cook, declined to request bail during a hearing the following day. Vincent was moved from Bristol prison because of fears for his safety, and was placed under suicide watch at Long Lartin prison. Vincent's family and friends in the Netherlands started to raise funds for his court defence. Vincent initially maintained he was not responsible for Joanna Yates' death, claiming that DNA evidence linking him to the crime had been fabricated by corrupt officials. However, on the 8th of February, he told Peter Brotherton, a prison chaplain, that he had killed her and intended to plead guilty. On the 5th of May 2011, Vincent Tabak pleaded guilty to the manslaughter of Joanna Yates, but denied murdering her. His plea of guilty to manslaughter was rejected by the CPS, Crown Prosecution Service. On the 20th of September, God, blimey, it's nearly a year now. On the 20th of September, Vincent Tabak appeared in person at a pre-trial hearing at Bristol Crown Court. Appearances at previous hearings had been made via video link from prison. Vincent Tabak was born on the 10th of February 1978, a Dutch engineer who had lived and worked in the United Kingdom since 2007. The youngest of 5 siblings, he was raised in Uden. I don't know how to say that. Vincent's childhood next door neighbour described him after the trial as an intelligent, introverted loner. He studied at University of Technology in the beginning of 1996, graduating in architecture, building and planning, and then he began a PhD in which his thesis was a study of how people use space in office buildings and public areas. The paper was published in 2008. Leaving university in 2007, he moved to the United Kingdom after taking a job at the headquarters of Borough Happold, an engineering consulting firm in Bath, and he settled in a flat in the town. He worked as a people flow analyst, a role which required him to examine how people move around in public spaces such as schools, airports and sports stadiums. While living in Bath, he established a relationship with a woman he first met through the Guardian's online dating website Soulmates. She was later described by the newspaper as his first serious girlfriend. He paid tribute to her in the acknowledgements of his thesis. "I'm very happy she entered my life." The couple moved into a flat in Bristol in June 2009. Although Joanna Yates and her partner moved into the neighbouring flat late in 2010, Joanna and Vincent did not meet prior to the 17th of December. So she didn't know him. After killing Joanna, Vincent attempted to cast suspicion for the murder onto Jeffries after watching a news broadcast about the case while spending the New Year with relatives in the Netherlands. He contacted... Oh my God, they have to inject themselves, don't they? He contacted Avon and Somerset police to tell them that Jeffries had been using his car on the night of the 17th of December, and a CID officer, DC Karen Thomas, was sent to Amsterdam to talk to him. They met at Amsterdam airport on the 31st of December, where Vincent elaborated on his story, but Thomas grew suspicious of his interest in the forensic work being carried out by the police, and because what he said did not concur with a previous statement. They if you remember, Ian Huntley did the same thing. He was asking about, how long does the DNA take to disappear? They all do it. They can't help it. Anyway, in the months leading up to Joanna's death, Vincent had used his computer to research escort agencies during business trips in the UK and the United States, and contacted several sex workers by phone. He also viewed violent internet pornography that depicted women being controlled by men, showing images of them being bound and gagged, held by the neck and choked. During the murder investigation, police found images of a woman who bore striking resemblance to Joanna. In one scene, she was shown pulling up a pink top to expose her bra and breasts. When Joanna was discovered, she was wearing a similar arranged pink top. At Vincent's trial, prosecuting barrister Nigel Lickley argued that the evidence of Vincent's activities should be provided to the jury. It might shed light on the need to hold a woman for long enough and the need to squeeze hard enough to take her life. Details of Vincent's viewing of pornography were not included in the prosecution's case, since the judge believed it did not prove that Vincent had acted with premeditation. After the trial, it emerged that pornographic images of children had been found on his computer. In December 2013, the Crown Prosecution Service announced that he would be prosecuted for possessing the images. On the 2nd of March 2015, Vincent pleaded guilty to possessing more than 100 indecent images of children and was sentenced to 10 months in prison to run concurrently with his existing life sentence for murder. The trial of Vincent started on the 4th of October 2011 at the Crown Court at Bristol before Justice Field and a jury. His counsel in the trial was William Clegg and the prosecutor was Nigel Lickley. Vincent pleaded guilty to manslaughter but denied murder. The prosecution cased that Vincent had strangled Joanna at her flat within minutes of her arrival home on the 17th of December, using sufficient force to kill her. The prosecutors stated that Vincent, around a foot taller than Joanna, had used his height and build to overpower her, pinning her to the floor by the wrists, and that she had suffered 43 separate injuries to her head, neck, torso, and arms during the struggle. The injuries included cuts, bruises, and a fractured nose. Lickley told the court that the struggle was lengthy and her death would have been slow and painful. However, he did not offer an explanation for the reasoning behind his initial attack on Joanna. Evidence was presented that Vincent had then tried to conceal the crime by disposing of her body. The court heard that DNA swabs taken from Joanna's body had provided a match with Vincent. Samples found behind the knees of her jeans indicated she may have been held by the legs as she was carried, while fibres suggested contact with Vincent's coat and car. Bloodstains were found on a wall overlooking a quarry close to where Joanna was discovered. The prosecution said that Vincent attempted to implicate Jeffries for the murder during the police investigation, and that in the days following Joanna's death, he had made internet searches for topics that included the length of time a body takes to decompose and the dates of refuge collections in the area. Oh my God. In his defence, Vincent claimed that the killing had not been sexually motivated and told the court he had killed Joanna while trying to silence her after she screamed when he tried to kiss her. He claimed that Joanna had made a flirty comment and invited him to drink with her. He said that after she screamed, he held his hands over her mouth and around her neck to silence her. He denied suggestions of a struggle, claiming to have held Joanna by the neck with only minimal force and for about 20 seconds. He told the court that after dumping the body, he was in a state of panic. The jury was sent out to deliberate on the 26th of October and returned with a verdict 2 days later. On the 28th of October 2011, Vincent Tabak was found guilty of Joanna Yates' murder by a 10-2 majority verdict. He was jailed for life with a minimum term of 20 years. Passing sentence, Mr. Justice Field referred to a sexual element to the killing. The manner in which certain aspects of the case were reported by the British media led to television broadcaster ITN being temporarily banned from attending press conferences related to the case, and the instigation of legal proceedings against several newspapers by both Christopher Jeffries, the landlord, and by the Attorney General. Wow. I kind of get why he would be upset, but he got compensated, you know, and they were trying to find a murderer, so, you know. Joanna's case was mentioned during a parliamentary debate on a private member's bill that would have imposed a sentence of 6 months imprisonment on any journalist who names an uncharged suspect. He was arrested, wasn't he? Or did I read that wrong? Am I remembering that wrong, is what I mean. Yeah, Jeffries gave evidence. This is all about Jeffries now. Okay, aftermath and memorials. Associate Vicar Dan Clark led a memorial service for Joanna at Christ Church in Clifton on the 2nd of January 2011. Prayers for her were also said at the church on the 17th of December, the first anniversary of her death. While visitors left tributes and messages of condolence for her family, Greg started a charity website in Joanna's memory to raise funds on behalf of families of missing people. How sweet is that? Joanna's friends and family planted a memorial garden at the Sir Harold Hiller Gardens in Romsey, where she had worked as a student. Building Design Partnership, where she worked, and the local NHS Trust announced plans to commemorate her with a memorial in a garden she had been designing for a new £430 million hospital in Southmead, Bristol. Other plans for memorials include a garden of remembrance at the where she worked firm's studio in Bristol, a published anthology of Joanna's work, and an annual landscape design prize named after her for students of the University of Gloucester. Following the release of her body on the 31st of January 2011, Joanna's family arranged to hold her funeral at St Mark's of Ampfield, Hampshire, and have her interred in the churchyard. Joanna was buried on the 11th of February. Approximately 300 people attended the service, which was led by Vicar Peter Gilkes. In 2013, ITV commissioned a drama about Jeffries' arrest, filming the two-part series starring Jason Watkins in the leading role began in November. The Bristol Post reported that Jeffries had read and approved of the script and supported the project. The drama, titled The Lost Honour of Christopher, I don't know how he has become the focus of this. Yes, he was wrongly accused. Yes, he was named in the papers. And I remember seeing him, but he was throwing himself in front of the cameras, from what I can remember. And now it's all about poor old Christopher Jeffries. Sorry, I'm getting annoyed. It should be poor old Joanna Yates, who was at home when this Vincent Tabak decided to... Okay, I'm not talking about Christopher Jeffries. I am not. So yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, I feel bad for Christopher Jeffries, don't get me wrong, but it's not about Christopher Jeffries, it's about Joanna Yates. Bless her. Yes, so this is the very, very tragic story. Oh, there's a picture of her. And yes, this is the very sad story of Joanna Yates, and for them to find her body on Christmas Day is really, really tragic. But yes, do you remember this story? That was the question. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have got some of your project done and enjoyed working alongside me. And I shall see you in another episode, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. If you do like my Thriller Thursdays and you're crafting along with me as you're listening, please consider hitting that subscribe button and show your support. Leave me comments on suggestions on anyone else you would like me to talk about in future episodes. And yeah, thank you for your support. It means a great deal. And I shall see you in my next episode, guys. Please, please, please stay safe out there. So, lots of love, lots of hugs, and lots of sparkles to you all. Bye, guys.